As the late afternoon sun fades below the horizon to the north, Wiglaf makes his way up the mountain trail and back to the overhanging rock between two mountains where he had last found the desecrated iron pillar with his faithful, trusty companion Griff the Husky at his side. He rounds the last turn and mounts the last little bit of height to be able to once again see the inscrutable, tall, perfectly cylindrical iron pillar standing there in a circle of dirt, and around the edge of the circle are some large, irregularly shaped rocks, perhaps the size of maybe two human heads in terms of their width. He wants to investigate the dead Iron Priest and the desecration at this pillar and see if he can figure out what's going on and make progress in his iron vows. Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is Ironsworn, Antarctica. We are with Wiglaf, our player character, who has returned to the Iron Pillar, and I've made a couple of changes and done a few things, so I want to quickly bring you up to speed on that. This is a new screen capture. I still have the original map of the Ironlands, which is the entire place, and what I did in my map maker Wonder Draft is I zoomed in just on this region where Wiglaf is, and then I took a screenshot of it and brought it in here so that we can have additional detail. What I've added to the map, you can see the black hatch marks are the trails that we've mentioned so far that exist in these mountains. I've named the mountain range because we're in here a lot, so it should have a name. It's called Irisia's Reach, randomly generated on the Ironsworn name generator, as well as the River of Abyssal Iron, which is the river that both Longhaven and Duskmoor are on, again randomly generated, and the forest that they're in, the Elder Woods. I'm not sure why it's called the River of Abyssal Iron, but I think probably up north of Red Hall, or not north, to the top of the map. It's actually east of Red Hall because north is to the left. In that area, there probably are some mines, and some of the iron gets into the water and maybe taints the water a little bit, and so gives the water a little bit of a metallic taste to it. I think that maybe that's possible. I'm not sure what to call this entire region. There are two rivers here, so that my knee-jerk reaction would be to call it two rivers, but there are several different fantasy books that are quite famous that have regions called two rivers, and even I think there was a D&D setting that had a region like that. So I'm still trying to think what this whole area of the Havens would be called, but I'm just calling this the Irisia's Reach region right now, since that's the mountain range where we are. So as long as we stay in this region, I will stick with this part of the map. When we move out of this region, I will go to a different, I'll zoom into the map in a different location, just so that it's a little easier to see. All the zooming in and zooming out made it very hard to manipulate this character token of Wiglaf, and so it's a little easier to do. So I've done that. Now, in terms of last session, I double-checked one thing. So before we go to the session notes, I've got two progress marked for both progress tracks for the two vows. And when I left you, it was one at the top and two and the one on the bottom. I double-checked in Ironsworn, and it is certainly recommended that if two quests intersect, it may be the case that certain milestones would apply to both. And he's got a graphic of like two different paths coming together, forming one, going down 3 or 4 milestones, and then splitting off. So I don't know how long these two will be together. There will be times when we learn things about one that don't relate to the other, and then we'll just mark one track. So I'll try to be careful about doing that correctly, but I will reevaluate after each session as well. In terms of what happened last time, it's been a couple of days of time. So a couple of days ago, Wiglaf got into a heated discussion with Merrick, who is the warden, who was very hostile to him and jealous because Merrick is a coward and he didn't protect Highmount the way wardens are supposed to. And now the people of the town are more respectful of Wiglaf than they are of Merrick, and he's not happy. Therefore, although Wiglaf wanted to ask questions of Merrick, he didn't bother because Merrick was so hostile. He then went in to an inn, and the inn was called Journeyman's Quest, and he met Cormac, the innkeeper, and Cormac charged him a little bit of extra money, but Wiglaf had plenty of cash. on hand. He had some copper coins that he could turn over. And Griff was able to stay in his room, and they rested. And in the meantime, they got some information from Cormac, which is about Kova's men and how they wear chainmail and they wield axes and they ride horses that have leather bardings to protect them. And there were about a dozen of them who attacked the settlement. So the question really is, how big is Kova's army? We really don't know. We didn't encounter a lot of soldiers in Duskmoor. And so far as we've been able to establish both the kidnapping of Sabine's family and now the people who were taken from Duskmoor were managed by a handful of men, right? Six or seven men in the first case and 12 in this case. So maybe Kova's army isn't that big, and the reason he's able to do reckless warmongering is that each town only has a few wardens, and they're just not enough to stop this. Or maybe if the town's warden is a coward, that could cause a problem too. So we reached a milestone about that, and then we sojourned, and we got strong hits on those, which gave us some momentum. So our momentum track is up to 9. The next morning, we then went in search of the former prisoners that we had helped, and we found 2 of the men that we rescued from the long haul, and they knew some stuff about Kova's true intentions, that not only is he working for the death cult, but he's trying to capture people for the purpose of sacrificing them in some sort of a death ritual. And previous information indicates to us that this death ritual might be an attempt to bring about essentially the Armageddon of the Ironlands, to match the Armageddon that happened everywhere else during the Great Cataclysm. So Wiglaf decided that he wanted to meet an Iron Priest, but there aren't any in the town, according to the Oracle. And that's partly because one is dead up in the mountains, right where we're about to pick up, but also there hadn't been one in Highmount for quite some time. So the Iron Priest who's dead up by the Iron Pillar is not from Highmount, but from somewhere else. And so then we faced danger, and we arrived having lost a little bit of momentum in the snow, and now we are ready to start. And so we're at the Iron Pillar, and the light is fading. And so the first thing Wiglaf does is he lights a torch, and then he and Griff are going to search around. Now, they've gathered information in this area before, but he has a little bit more to go on now, and I think one of the things he's going to do is actually search the body of this Iron Priest and see, is there anything on the body? Is there any information we can gather, perhaps from the manner excuse me, of his death, like what happened to kill him, how was he killed, and that sort of thing. So let's make our first move of the session and attempt to gather information. We do this with plus wits, and since Griff can help us here because he can sniff things out, and like if there's a weapon buried under the body, he might find it, or if it's off to the side, we're going to add +1 for Griff's ability of being sharp. So we add +1, and we take an extra +1 momentum on a hit, although we really won't need that because we're at 9 and we can only go up to 10. So we roll, and on our action die we get a 3 + 3 is 6 against a 2 and a 1. So this is a strong hit. So that means we could discover something helpful and specific. The path we must follow is clear. And so first I want to take the momentum so we don't forget. We're now at max momentum. And now let me think about, what did we find out? Let's try, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's try the action and theme oracles and see if that gives us anything to think about. Now, one of the things that I was watching a video where somebody was talking about how to do this solo, how to do solo gaming, and said don't let the dice control everything. Use the dice when you're not sure, but if the dice give you an answer that doesn't make any sense or doesn't fit, do something else. You can flip it, right? So like if you get an 82, look at 28 as well and just see which one makes the most sense. So we could try that as well, but let's see what we get. The action is 0-1 scheme. Okay, that might be interesting. And the theme is 67 scheme war. Okay, well, so there's going to be, somehow there's going to be evidence of the scheme of war. So what do we have? Could it be that this Iron Priest, for some reason, has on his person a document that outlines Kova's plan? And I don't know if this Iron Priest was involved, or maybe if the Iron Priest is trying to stop it. So first of all, let's ask the Oracle. Could it be, is there a document on this Iron Priest that has some sort of a war plan. And I'm going to say that's likely, because scheming war, what other, a scheme of war is a war plan, right? So we roll and we get a 59. So yeah, so Griff kind of paws at the belt of this guy, and Wiglaf noticed something he didn't see before. There was a crumpled up parchment stuck underneath the guy's cloak, but the way he was killed, I guess the way he fell, the cloak has fallen open, or maybe because the body is starting to begin its process of decay and has shifted a little bit. Maybe the soil's gotten a little damp from the melting snow all around it, and so the body has shifted, and now whoever killed him either didn't care or didn't know that this paper was here. And Wiglaf carefully pulls out the paper, and so there's a document that's got some kind of plans about the war, right? So let me think about how to figure out what it says on the plans, and I will come back and unpause as soon as I do that. All right, so I thought, well, once again, let's take a look at our scheming leader threat. Now, again, this is designed for the threat mechanic, which we're not using yet, because the threat mechanic really ups the difficulty. And I think for these first few quests, where we only have 3 level 1 assets, we don't want to get that. I mean, it's already formidable. I don't want to make it too difficult to the point where it's just not enjoyable because we're constantly in trouble. But what happens is when you advance the threat, every time you miss on trying to reach a milestone, you advance the threat. That's kind of how it works. And each time you advance the threat, you roll on this to see what the bad guy is going to do. So we have a scheming leader here. And there are some things that could potentially be on here. For example, he could be trying to form a new alliance, enact a new law. The plans could reveal a true intention, like where he's going to attack next, right? So this is interesting. So he's attacked both Highmount and Longhaven. Does he want to go back to these places or perhaps go to a new one? So let's roll and see what we get. I get a 27, which is usurp or undermine another leader. So he's going to try and there's evidence in this document that he's going to try to undermine a leader. So let's go back to the Oracle and ask the Oracle, is this one of the towns we're already familiar with, or is it a new town? I'm going to say it's 50-50. Right. Well, I'm going to say it's likely it's one of the 2 towns we've already heard of. He might be trying to undermine their leaders. We don't even know anything about their leaders, but let's see. And we get a 47. So yes. So is it Highmount or is it Longhaven? Now he's already done more in Highmount than he's done to Longhaven, so I suspect it might be Longhaven. So I'm going to call that likely. And we get a 58. So what we've now got, what Wiglaf finds, is a document that is describing how this guy is going to undermine the leader of Longhaven, right? And does this document indicate that somebody in Longhaven is a traitor, right? And is going to help. Maybe somebody in Longhaven is secretly a death cultist. So I think that's likely. Is someone in Longhaven a traitor? 51, yes. So this document has evidence in it. Maybe it's a message to the traitor. I think that's what this is. It's a message from Kova to whoever the traitor is in Longhaven, who is supposed to betray the town and potentially betray the leader of Longhaven to Kova. Maybe he's going to assassinate the leader or do something to undermine the town's defense. So I think that's interesting. And now this raises the prospect of, could it be that Merrick wasn't a coward but was actually a traitor? Maybe Kova's buying people off. Is Kova buying people off? I think that's actually pretty likely. 86, yes. So this is a document indicating that he's buying off the people of Longhaven or something, or somebody's working for him. He's offering a reward. Maybe he's saying, I'll make you leader, right? Don't know how exactly he's buying them off. It doesn't really matter. But we've now got a document showing that Kova has got a secret spy, informant, a traitor inside of Longhaven. Now, this is an issue for Wiglaf a little bit, because people in Longhaven don't like him very much. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this works. But I think that that's what's going on. So there is a traitor in Longhaven who's working for Kova. And I think that allows us to reach a milestone. So I'm going to go ahead and add another tick to this one. This doesn't really tell us anything about the death cult. Maybe the guy's a death cultist. When we confront him, we might find this out. But for right now, all we know is that this is like instructions from Kova to whoever this guy is. Here's a question. Does the note identify the spy, or does it just indicate that there is one? I'm going to say it's 50-50. 60, yes. So the note identifies the spy. So I'm going to pause it here, and I'm going to have to work out what the leadership structure is of Longhaven, who the leader is, and who the spy is. Or maybe I won't figure out what the spy's name is, but I'll do a little bit of work. So I will pause it here, and I'll bring you back when I've kind of set that up. All right, and I'm back. So I sort of randomly checked and just sort of asked the Oracle, is it this, is it that? And turns out that there's an elected single leader of Longhaven, and this is called the magistrate of the town. He's elected every 2 years. The current magistrate is a guy named Leo of Longhaven. And I rolled this all up pretty much as is. I didn't have to do any tweaking. Leo, I rolled 100 or whatever it is that says roll twice. So he has 2 goals: to prove his worthiness and to rebel against power. And I feel like that's basically rebelling against Kova, right? He wants to fight Kova. He doesn't want his town to be defeated and conquered by Duskmoor. His disposition is wanting. That makes complete sense. He's kind of desperate, right? He's suspicious but charming. His activity is resting. So I guess when we meet him, he's going to be taking his ease, perhaps. And obviously he's in Longhaven. And so he's a young magistrate, and he wants to prove his worthiness. And his worthiness has come into question because Sabine's family was attacked by Kova and then rescued by this guy who's thought to be a murderer. And I think probably it's also the case that Leo of Longhaven, basically there wasn't enough evidence to convict Wiglaf, so he kind of let him go. And I think the town isn't too happy about that. I've also created the traitor. I haven't named him because I don't know who he or she is. I looked at the goals and I asked the Oracle, is it to spread the faith? And the Oracle told me yes. So I think this is a cultist. This is potentially a zealot who is trying to spread the faith of Angus. His disposition right now is indifferent toward Wiglaf. Right now he's cunning and religious. Those I actually came about by reversing the numbers that I rolled, and they just seem more appropriate than whatever the other options were. His activity came up as disabling the leader of the town, right? Leo of Longhaven. So I don't know. We got his role as a trader. He might be a shop owner, might be somebody who runs a caravan. I don't really know yet. We'll find out. I also have some ideas about this guy in some other regards, but we'll have to see what the oracles and the moves tell us. So now we go back to Wiglaf. And Wiglaf is, where are we? Wiglaf is here at the Iron Pillar, and he's now going to need to go down to Longhaven, which is just the next hex over. So he just has to go down the trail and head over there. He can't get there in one day. It's about 20 miles away, so it's going to take a day to walk. So we're going to make camp tonight, and then we will head down to Longhaven the next day. So let's go ahead and make camp. And in fact, I'm not going to do this as a move because we don't need health, we don't need spirit, we don't need momentum. There really isn't. We're not going to undertake a journey, so he's just going to camp that night. We're not going to make a move. I guess what we'll do is we'll ask the Oracle if does anything untoward happen? Like maybe be attacked by an animal or something. Does that happen? I'm going to say it's small chance that like he and Griff get attacked by an animal. 84, so no. So nothing exciting happens that night, and the next morning they break camp and they head down to the town. So now I think it's let's ask the Oracle. I can say it's unlikely. Do they get waylaid along the road? Perhaps. And we roll a 69, so they do not. So basically, they make it down, since it's just one hex away. They make it down to the town of Longhaven, and there's no wall here. So they make it down to the town of Longhaven, and you can see I've got a little iron pillar here on the map to indicate, and I'm going to put other iron pillars wherever we find them. So they head down, and it's a pretty nice day, and they walk mostly during daylight, and they arrive as dusk is approaching. They arrive at the town of Longhaven. And so Wiglaf's got on him this document that indicates that there's a traitor and who the traitor is, right? And so I think his first move would be to try and find Leo. So he walks into town, and the first thing he's going to come across is probably the Iron Warden of this town. So let's ask the Oracle, is there more than one Iron Warden here in Longhaven? I'm going to assume that that's almost certain. And we roll a 66, so yes. So there are at least 2 Iron Wardens. Are there more than 2 Iron Wardens? I'm going to say that's likely. We get a 19, so no. There are 2 Iron Wardens in the town, so let's go ahead and note that down. So there are currently 2 Iron Wardens in Longhaven. So he's going to walk up to one of the Iron Wardens, and he's going to ask if he can get to... can you give me directions? Tell me where... You wouldn't need directions. Can you tell me where Leo is? Because Leo could be like in the magistrate's office. He could be at his house, and so forth. And so, are they going to cooperate? All right. So, I think we're going to make a compel move here, and the reason is Wiglaf isn't well liked in this town right now, and so I think he's going to have to try to charm them. So he walks up to the Iron Warden and says, "Ho, let's roll a name for one of the Iron Wardens. Let's see, Ironlander names, and let me get my highlighter out so I can eliminate. So, is it male or female? Is it male? No, it is female." So it's a woman, and we're going to roll on the 3, the left table, and we come up with a 25, so we'll use that name, Mila. So it is an Iron Warden, and I'm not going to make up a sheet for her right now. 1 is a woman named Mila. And so she's walking down the street, she's got her chainmail, she's carrying a spear, shield slung over her back, outfitted not too differently from Wiglaf, except he doesn't have armor. And he says, "Ho, Mila, can I speak to you?" And she kind of frowns at him because she knows he's the murderer, right, who got free. And she says, "What do you want?" And he says, "Look, I don't know if you've heard, but I rescued Sabine's family from Duskmoor. And while I was in Duskmoor, I heard some things, and I think I have some idea what Cove is up to. And I'd really like to talk to Leo about it. Can you tell me where he is?" So this is charm. He's rolling plus heart. Does not have a bond. I don't believe he has a bond with the town of Longhaven, does he? No. He has Highmount and Redhall, but not Longhaven. So he's going to just try to charm her. And he says, "Look, Mila, you know that I'm not a murderer. Come on. You know I would never have hurt Honshu. And also, don't you feel like I've proven myself a little bit by breaking into Duskmoor all by myself and freeing not only Sabine and his family, but have you heard? I rescued 8 people from Highmount. They love me there. can't you give me some information here? I'm really trying to help. And even if I did something in the past you didn't like, don't I get some copper pieces of credit in your bank for helping the people get out of Duskmoor and for braving Duskmoor? And let's see if it works. Plus heart. So we're going to roll plus heart. So that's plus 4. We get 3 plus 4 is 7 against a 3 and an 8. So that is a weak hit. So she says, all right, I'll tell you where Leo is. But I want you to take me with you because I want to hear this information too. And he says, all right, come along. So so they walked through the town, and again, night is beginning to fall, and because they go through so much darkness, and darkness has danger in it in Antarctica, in the Ironlands, they have these, the standing torches along the roadway, the big tall like sticks that are like 6 feet high, and then you've got like the torch attached to it. And so the other Iron Warden is kind of looking at them funny because he doesn't like Wiglaf much either, and he's lighting the torches, and other people are helping, and they're starting to light torches all down the main street and the side streets because the darkness is bad, and they try to keep the darkness at bay as much as they can. And it's a long, long night at this point. They're still getting like 19 hours of night. So maybe 20 hours of night. So they walk down the street as the twilight comes in, and the torch light starts to flicker up and illuminate the street. And Mila says, so you actually saved Sabine and his family. I had heard something about that. How did you do it? And he points to his dog, and he said, well, Griff helped me. We snuck in through a hole in the wall. Oh, there's a hole in the wall. She says, well, where was it? And he describes it to her. And she says, oh, okay. Maybe this guy isn't so bad. He said, well, we got in there, and a couple of the guards saw us, but we fought them off. And then I managed to free some of the prisoners that they had, and those guys made a ruckus, and while they made a ruckus, I was able to use that distraction to free their families, and we all got out. And she says, well, that was quite a brave thing to do. So now she's a little bit impressed, and maybe doesn't hate Wiglaf quite so much. And so now they come to the mayor's house, and she knocks on the door. And the door opens, and Leo says, what do you... He's like holding in his hand, he just removed like a hot compress cloth from his forehead. He's got a bit of a headache. He was resting. And he says, you're interrupting my rest. I was just getting ready to go to sleep. What do you want, Mila? And Mila says, can we come in? I think this young man has some information you need. And he looks at Wiglaf, and he says, he's very suspicious, remember. And he says, Wiglaf, the murderer, I remember you. What are you doing here? Wiglaf says, I told you many times I'm not a murderer, and I have some information for you. And Mila says, Magistrate, I think you want to listen to him, and I think we should go inside. So they go inside, and he shuts the door, and he says, all right. Would you guys like some tea? And I have some leftovers from dinner. And he sees Griff, and he says, I've got some scraps for the dog. So he gives the dog some scraps because he's charming, remember? And he says, here, let me pour you guys some tea. And he has hot water from having made the compress so he can make some tea. And they each get some tea and tea leaves in their mugs, and they sit down at the scrubbed pine table in this fairly modest home because this is the Ironlands. It's just sort of a log cabin, right? And he says, all right, what do you want? And Wiglaf is now going to tell the story, right? He explains what happened with Sabine, that he went off to Duskmoor, that he found these people in a temple to some sort of a god, and that since then he's encountered people from Duskmoor who told him it's a death god and that they're trying to invoke this ritual. Wiglaf then explains that he found this desecrated iron pillar with a dead iron priest. And of course, this raises some eyebrows, and he says, I found this on the priest. And the first thing Mila says is, did you kill the priest? Or are you the reason he's dead? And he says, no, the priest was dead before I found him, but he had this document on him. And he shows the document that reveals that this guy in the town is a traitor. So, what are we going to do here as a move? I feel like this is facing danger. Right? Because what he's not gathering information now, but what he's trying to do is kind of prove to them that this traitor is bad, but they already distrust him because he's a known or thought to be a murderer, right? So they could think he killed the Iron Priest. They could think he forged the note, right? So I think what we're going to do is he's using some charm and some courage and some loyalty. I think or is he using insight? I think he's using insight here. I hate to say it because now we got to roll wits, but he's using his intellect. And he's explaining to them what happened, and he's trying to explain what the plan is and how this Iron Priest somehow had on his person evidence that there was a betrayal going on in town. And the question is, are they going to believe him? Right? And so if we miss, I think they're not going to believe him. If we get a weak hit, maybe they'll be unsure. And if we get a strong hit, obviously, then they'll believe him. So rolling plus wits, we do have 10 momentum, so we should be okay on this. Although I don't want to use up all my momentum on this. Hopefully we won't. And we roll a 5 plus 2 is 7 against a 5 and an 8. That's a weak hit. So there's a troublesome cost. We could be delayed, tired, hurt, afraid, sacrifice resources. Face a new danger. Okay. So I think Wiglaf makes some progress in convincing them that there is a plot and there is a traitor. But while he's in the middle of describing this, and he isn't completely done convincing him, the door opens and the traitor walks in. And now we're going to name the traitor. Ironlander names. So is the traitor male? 51 or higher? No, 47. The traitor is a woman. And we're going to look on table 5 to the left. And we're going to roll. And we get 97 for the name. Tamir. So Tamir is the traitor. Okay. And the door opens, and this tall, very attractive, fit woman in her 30s walks in with long hair, and she says, "Leo, I saw a warden come in here. Is everything all right? Do you need my help?" And then her eyes go to Wiglaf and then to the paper. And she says, "What's going on in here?" And since we're at the 33 or 4 minute mark, I think we're going to stop there. The traitor has walked in, and the mayor, the magistrate, Leo, and the warden are looking at her like, we know something. Wiglaf's in there. Griff is probably growling, right? And she potentially knows she's uncovered what's going to happen. She's cunning. She's a religious zealot. I don't know. We will play and find out next time. We only did a couple of moves this time because there was a lot more narrative and sort of story building, but that's okay. I really enjoyed that. We've now made it into the town. We have added one more progress to our progress track for stopping the warmongering once and for all, because we found out that traitor. Now, I think if we do something with the traitor, we get her caught or defeat her in combat or get her run out of town, that will add some more progress. If she's a death cultist, we might learn some more about the death cult if we can capture her and question her. But all of that will happen the next time we play. Until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been Ironsworn, Antarctica.